Hi, how are you doing today? It's so wonderful that we have a snowy day here, as you can see behind me. My husband put a little decorations in the back, some Christmas lights, and some horses that actually my kids made when they were younger. So those little horses that you see behind there on the Christmas lights are horses that they made probably 25 years ago. So if you're tuning in with me here today, let me know where you're coming from. I'm in BC, Canada, and as you can see, it's a snowy day here. Let me know how your day is going and what you're dealing with today in your part of the world. And if you're tuning in with me on another day or catching the replay, let me know also where you're coming from, because I always come in later, I chat with you, and I like to see where you're coming from. And it's great to have you here. My name is Chris Adderson. I'm the founder of forthehorse.com. If you want to follow my lives, be sure to click on the icon above so that you can get notified when I go live and you won't miss them. And if you'd like to also, you can click on those three dots up in the right corner and just make sure your notifications are set to see my lives. How to connect with the intelligence of our horses. This is what I'm going to talk about today. And as you're jumping on, let me know where you're coming from here. So a young woman sat in a wheelchair with a horse by her side. And it was a super hot summer day. It was the beginning of July. It was in a huge open field. There was forest in the background, a huge open grassy field. And this woman was in the wheelchair with the horse by her side. We were gathering in this place to celebrate history, to celebrate horses, to celebrate country, to celebrate community. And the audience, the people who were gathered there was children, there was families, there were grandparents, there was horse people, there was not horse people, there were city people, but there was an audience gathered in a circle around, and they were anxiously waiting for our presentation. This woman in the wheelchair had a serious horse accident. She was riding not too far before when we were there at this gathering on her horse, and her horse spooked at something. She found herself on the ground with the horse on top of her, and she was then a paraplegic from that time forward. She had no use of her legs and her body from the waist down. She had the use of her arms and from the waist up. So she motioned to me to come over to her. I went over to her and I leant down beside her and put my ear to her face. And she said something to me. Do you know what she said to me? Put a note for me below what you think she said to me on that day. So horses are highly intelligent and sentient beings. But how do we connect with that intelligence? And how do we connect with that intelligence to get the results that we're looking for and to develop a deep bond that is everlasting? Today, we're going to chat about rider confusion and overwhelm that we have all experienced. We're going to talk about transitioning to a different approach with our horses. And we're going to talk about the problems with training as it's taught in our world today. That's my dog barking in the background. And I can see out of the corner of my eye that he sees a cat. And this cat is not our cat, but has adopted us recently. So he's not used to this cat being around. Handsome, come on. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, so yeah. This actually leads directly into what I'm going to chat to you about today. Because it's time for us to change. It's time for us to look at our horses in a different way. Our horses have been waiting for this for a long time. They want us to up level with them and to connect with their intelligence. And so it's time for us to change. Because I know if you're here watching this, this is what you're seeking too. So my dog is watching this cat. He's using his very acute senses and his sense of awareness. And also let me know that there's a strange cat walking around here. And that's what I'd like to talk about first. And that is that trust that the horse knows. Right? Trust that my dog knows. Trust that he knows that his senses are telling them there's something, and his job is to look after the farm. So he's going to let me know that there's something there. I could say, stop barking, don't be a disturbance right now. But no, I recognize that he is telling me he's doing his job, and he's using his acute senses to do that. All right, so as a young child growing up, I can remember so clearly that I would watch the interactions between people around me and the animals around me. And I was always never understanding why people would treat animals as lesser than beings, lesser than human beings, lesser than beings in the world. And it bothered me greatly. So I began reading a lot of books. I did a ton of reading about this. And one author that I read about, who I then became friends with and had many intimate discussions with, was R.D. Lawrence. Look him up. He's written a lot of books. He's a philosopher, a wildlife lover, a researcher, and he rescued wolves. He had wolves that were going to be slaughtered that he rescued, and he set up a enclosure for them on his acreage where he studied them. And his studies were really influential in understanding the intelligence of animals. And so we had conversations about what was intelligence and what that really meant. And what we came up with was that his definition relating to animals was that the definition of intelligence was the ability to adapt and to understand that everything is perfect and complex in their own way and not as a comparison to humans. All right? So with regards to R.D. Lawrence and wolves, he noted they had an amazing ability to adapt to their environment, right? They could adapt to the most harsh conditions of the deepest of winter and severe conditions, to then adapting to the conditions of very harsh summer, hot conditions, humidity, heat. So they had the ability to adapt, and that was his point. And that was relating to his definition of intelligence. And now horses, they have the amazing ability to adapt to humans, to fit into human society and what we set up for them. They have the most amazing ability to understand us. Even if we don't understand ourselves, if we are not clear on ourselves, they have the most amazing ability to adapt and just say, oh, okay, she means this. She wants me to do this, so I'll just do this. Do you know a lesson horse who has taken that role upon themselves? So horses also have, just like my dog, seeing that cat that I perhaps would not see in the distance. He has, and horses have the most amazing awareness and their senses, the ability to detect change in their environment, the ability to see the slightest of movements and respond to that. And that's what we did on that day. with the woman in the wheelchair and my horse, Dawn. We were there to give a presentation and a performance in celebration of horses and the history of horses about how horses adapt to humans. And so this woman was in her wheelchair. She had Dawn, my horse, with her. And what she did was she circled Dawn around her at liberty with the audience, the people all around us, making a circle of people. Dawn circled around her at liberty. She brought Dawn in by backing up the wheelchair a little bit. She sent Dawn out. She had just the slightest of cues that she used, or not even cues. It was the slightest of conversation that she used to communicate with Dawn. And it was a Liberty performance, like I said, and it went over amazingly well. So that's number one. That's where we need to trust that the horse knows. So number two is educate ourselves on our movement. All right, so horses are masters of movement. We know that, right? They are made, they are designed in the most amazing way to move. And we have put ourselves in front of computers using our hands all day, and we've conditioned ourselves and our nervous systems so that we actually don't function as a whole. We're functioning in parts. So in order to be with a horse, we need to connect then to ourselves, educate ourselves about our movement, and help ourselves to then function as a whole in our movement. Not focus on our hands as we do for hours and hours and hours a day. If that resonates, let me know. Do you find yourself for a great majority of the hours in a day that you are using your hands, whether it's at a computer or doing some kind of other job? Let me know. Put a note for me below. So we need to know our bodies, we need to know our movement, and find our place of power. Once we know our place of power, then we are moving as a whole, as a functioning whole, and we can play this instrument, which is our bodies, the way that our horses are able to listen to us. So this is basically understanding and knowledge about ourselves. It's not the aids, which is commonly taught in the horse world. It's not obedience to the aids. It's not perfection of the aids. It's not hauling our horses around. It is, what it is setting up our body for success with our horses. So we need to work in a focused way, in a focused whole way. It's not hard. It's focused, though. It's not busy, but it's concentrated. And it's not too much. And this is where riders find themselves in overwhelming confusion, is because it's the perfection of the aids that's always on their minds. Like, I have to put my leg here, I have to put my hand here, I have to do this with my fingers, I have to feel this, I have to do this, and it's too complex. What makes us think that we can coordinate that much? Right? What makes us think that we can coordinate muscles, bones, ligaments, tendons, nervous system, and be attending to all those things? It's just not possible. But when you educate yourself, find your place of power, and use your body as a whole, that's when you can really talk to your horse and access the intelligence of our horses, because then our horses also have intelligence in movement. They are masters of movement, as I already said. But once we connect with ourselves in this way, we can then connect with our horses, and we can guide our horses. We're not submitting them to being obedient to our aids. We are guiding our horses to find their best pure movement, to find where they are then able to work as a whole in unit with us. And so we become a unit as the two of us dancing together. So the stories that we have, and I mentioned earlier about how humans put horses through so much trauma because they don't trust that the dog knows, or they don't trust that the horse knows. And so our ignorance puts the animals through so much trauma. Well, those traumas are stored in the body. They are stored, of course, in the mind, in the emotion, but they are also stored in our bodies and in our horses' bodies. I've rescued a lot of horses and animals, dogs, etc. And I found that the traumas express themselves continually throughout the entire life, in the movement, in the mental approach, in the emotions. And so these stories of the human interaction and the traumas that have happened in the past are held. And this is affecting the movement, and hence it'll affect the way that we ride. All right, so number 3 is living in the moment. Horses are masters at living in the moment, aren't they? They live solely in the moment. They don't look at the past. They don't look at the future. They do have memory in their muscles, but they don't focus on what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. They are in the moment. So do we really want to take all of our stuff and our stories that we have into our riding? This is really important, because once we connect with our horses, the horses connect back with us, and they can tell us what's happening. They show us where we need to heal. They can see our movement clearly, even the slightest movement and up to the grossest movement, as you know, with the story about Sonia in the wheelchair with Dawn, my horse. They perceive the slightest of movements, but they also perceive what's behind the movement. What is the story behind that person's movement? They understand that. And so they can teach us how to heal if we're ready to listen to this. So transitioning to this different approach with our horse asks us to get absolutely crystal clear on ourselves, doesn't it? The clearer you get on yourself, the more you can release your own subconscious patterns, maybe your own guilt that's happened in the past, the more you can get in touch with your negative emotions that you're holding, all the pain that you have, all the angst that you have, all the details that are behind your stories. And this is what we do in my program. We help you to release that. We help you to find those stories and release them so that you can then communicate very clearly with your horses. You're not carrying all that baggage to your horse, releasing that and coming to your horse to being in the moment. And we can watch our horses, and then we can feel our horses. We can feel, because when we have learned how to be whole in our movement and have our place of power, then we're much more able to feel. Until then, it's just pieces and parts, which leads to overwhelm in horses, in riders, and lack of understanding and lack of ability to pick up and to receive, and then lack of ability to give back. So that's what we do in my program. We help you with all of those things that I've just discussed here. If you'd like more information, I have a free webinar that you can watch. It describes all of what I've talked about today in much more detail. And you can watch that, see if it resonates with you, and see if it's something that you would like to get support with from my online program. And that really is the difference that we have from any other program online on the internet, is the support that we give and addressing these things that I've talked about today. Teaching you how to connect with the intelligence of your horse. What exactly is the intelligence with your horse? Trusting your horse, knowing how to connect with your horse, educating yourself on your movement, and living in the moment. So to get back to the story that I told you about my horse and the woman in the wheelchair, when I leant down and put my ear beside her before she did her performance with my horse, what she said to me was trust and connect, because we were there to trust and connect. Dawn and the woman in the wheelchair were at liberty. There's nothing we could do but trust and connect, right? We couldn't do anything different than that. So what she said to me was trust and connect. She had approached me because she had a fear of horses because of her accident, and she had not been around horses for quite some time after the accident, and she loved horses deeply. She really wanted sincerely to get over the fear and get back into being with horses. And so that's what we did together. And we did this performance, and we helped her overcome her fear. And the biggest teacher there was Dawn, though, my horse. Dawn helped her to learn to trust and connect, and it'll all be okay. All right, thanks so much for being here. It's great to have you. Thanks for the likes and the loves. Again, feel free to put notes for me below. I will come in and chat with you and have conversations with me, and have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.